Yo, 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 yo. King Nappy here. I am the host. You are tuned in to the Regal 30 podcast. How's everybody doing today? I hope everybody's doing well. This is getting out of hand, yo. I don't even really have to say what it is I'm talking about. Looking at the statistics right now. US status, we got 14,299 confirmed. That's estimate based off of an additional 4,850. These are the cases. 217 deaths. That's 62. That's including the 62 from today. It looks like either today or this week. 121 have recovered. So the recovery rate look like it's doing a little better. These are numbers that, of course, news articles are giving us, so we can't live and die by these numbers. Illinois is definitely been receiving its fair share. So far as confirmed cases, we got 5,700 in New York, 13 in Washington, 1,000 in Cali, 742 in New Jersey, Florida with 432, Illinois with 422, Louisiana 392, Michigan 336. List goes on. Massachusetts 328, Texas 311. Three new positive cases in St. Louis. Central Illinois daycare stay open to take extra precaution during COVID-19. Illinois' COVID-19 cases grow, but tests remain limited. I keep hearing everybody, mention testing. Everybody wants to do testing. They're looking to formulate, I guess, faster, accurate, more seamless test. So they're looking to. I think they sent out like $1 trillion or $1 billion bill that allowed them to receive funding to come up with more tests to issue and send out. Coronavirus remote work, not for these Central Illinois employees. You haven't noticed everybody been working from home and things like that. Some Illinois cities prepare for a COVID-19 lockdown. St. Louis University student test positive after traveling abroad. St. Louis area coronavirus testing increasing, but most people are still sick. St. Louis hospitals are canceling elective medical procedures. Any procedures that could possibly be delayed 8 or more weeks without the person being at risk, they're canceling all of that. Try to free up the schedules and free up space and alleviate staff. Uh, Try to stave off the depletion of supplies. It's just, oh boy. NYC mayor test Elon Musk offer to make ventilators during the coronavirus crisis. Now they got Musk involved. LA, safer at home, emergency order due to the corona. It's just been wild. It's been wild. I had to go to the grocery store today and of course you hygiene, wash your hands, sanitize, picked up some gloves so as I go inside I'm not touching anything and keeping myself safe, keeping people safe from, my germs as well, whatever the case. Just gotta look after each other out here. Safe practices. It's wild out here though. Cardi B released another rant video. Take a listen.
I need to know what's going on. If you work at the fucking Pentagon, let a bitch know. Cause I need to fucking know, nigga. I need to fucking know, nigga. I don't know if you could tell, but I'm losing my fucking mind. I wanna get dressed up. I wanna put a fucking lace front on. I wanna put my fucking expensive outfits, and I want to go fucking out. And I can't.
That's Cardi B. This is she captioned it day 5 of quarantine. I think that's her cap. It was from a Jess at Cardi won a Grammy. Says this isn't the first coronavirus related rant that Cardi has shared. Last week, the Grammy winner shared a panic video which inspired a slew of hilarious remixes. Oh wow. Cardi B seeks royalties after coronavirus panic remix goes viral. Cardi B's panic post is a lesson on how not to handle the coronavirus. This is just wild, yo. I can't even think of another word for this. I know Illinois is looking to consider a shelter in place order. Oh, sorry, I'm drinking some water there. The shelter in place order. I think St. Louis even was speculating about it. That's what I would. That's what probably would annoy me the most. Because depending on where you at, that could get really annoying really fast. I think about the guys who were on the cruise recently and they got back, and they were forced to stay in their rooms on the cruise. Now, if you're going the cheap route during this season and you're planning to take a cruise, which I don't see why they would allow that. If you're not allowing people to go to restaurants and eat, I just don't understand why you're allowing hundreds and or nearly thousands of people to board ships in close quarters on international waters. Um, I would think that any scheduled trip would be refunded for the remaining of the year till further notice. And once things get back into good standings, they can contact those customers that they refunded, or possibly reschedule them at a much later time. Or but the fact that there's even cruises still being you know scheduled is kind of wild. Um, you would think that you would get tired of speaking on this topic, but as I said before, this is a topic that isn't necessarily annoying to me. It showcases a lot of our personality and just the true colors of the country and the people that's in it and how we deal with inconvenience. This particular this particular pandemic is people look at it like it's an inconvenience to them, and they don't really, even if this thing is fake, even if this thing is like an entire hoax, just what's happening around it, we need to be a little bit more sensitive about. Vanessa Vanessa Hudgens feels terrible about how coronavirus remarks. I think she had went on to say something to the extent of, "Yeah, I get it. It's a virus. Let me see if I can find the comments here. I read it yesterday. Yeah, she said in an Instagram live session on March 14th. Yeah, till July sounds like a bunch of bullshit. Hollywood Life, the article says, but that wasn't the worst part. She added that although people dying from the virus is terrible, it's also inevitable. Vanessa hates that her rant on Instagram took such a life of its own, and now she knows that she has to do some damage control. Our first source tells us, who assures that the actress isn't doing it just to do it. The source explains it took a minute to realize that she offended people. What? What is going on? How does that take you a minute to realize that you could possibly offend somebody? The statistic that I was reading out earlier, so far as the 14,009, I think it's 14,922. I think those were the stats that I was reading earlier. Let's double check. Yes, no, actually I said it backwards. 14,299. That is the confirmed cases. The death stats, it's 217. It's 217 people dead, and it's related to this particular virus. Now, people may say, "Oh, this isn't real. This is a hoax. This is a strategy for them to, do this to the economy, to do this, to get people to do that. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a flu." Whatever the case, if I have a mother or a father standing next to me who lost a child or a loved one to this pandemic, however the case what may be, and I blurt something out like, "Yeah, it's terrible, but it's kind of inevitable." Yeah, it's just different when a person is actually been directly affected by it, and that's been my whole point. I think this is my third segment talking about this because it's just, you think, okay, I'm gonna talk about this and I'm gonna set that down, I'm gonna leave that alone, and we're never gonna come back here again. And it's just like I found myself right back here, like talking about it. There is a level of being insensitive that's just a little too much. I get it. Everybody wants to prove how unafraid they are, but that could be unwise. And there's a difference between being fearful and being unwise. There's a difference between being fearful and being wise, and being not fearful and unwise. To me, the difference is you see what's happening around you. You see the direction that the country is heading. You see the articles being released by the government, by the CDC, by health organizations. You see the things that they're considering to do. So you know what actions they're going ready to take. You need to plan accordingly to those actions. That's wisdom. That's being prepared. That's readiness. That's being tactical in how you move and how you do things. And that's imperative. It's important that you be tactful in how you do things, that you be tactical and be smart. You don't have to be fearful. You don't have to go and buy 20 things of toilet tissue unless you really just have a big family. So I saw a video, three young ladies in I think it was a Deerbergs. They were fighting over toilet paper. Fighting over toilet paper. It was nuts. I think one lady had a basket just full of it. It was maybe like 9 packs, and each pack was like a 9 pack. And Another lady just wanted one pack. And that's been an issue as well. Is people going to the stores and grabbing up way more than what they need just out of selfishness and the thought of self-preservation. I'm glad I brought up self-preservation as well. So let's do a little bit of this. In Revelations chapter 9, verses, we'll start at verse 2. This is in Revelation. This is visions that John had, island of Patmos. Isn't that right? And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, and as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by the reason of the smoke. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have. This kind of caught my attention because it mentioned locusts, and locusts aren't just called locusts just right out the bat. They usually are called locusts once they have a certain behavioral, certain things happen, certain habitual things happen with them in their behavioral change. But originally, they're just grasshoppers. It said that, let's go back. I'm kind of flick back and forth to this scripture. There came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. So, and it was commanded them, they should not hurt the grass of the earth, nor any green thing, neither any tree, which is usually the characteristics of locusts. They usually gather in large swarms and large army sizes and large numbers, thousands, millions, billions, depending on what's going on, what region, how dense they are. But they're called locusts due to the characteristics and behavioral traits that they develop from overcrowding. They're typically alone or not in large groups like that from what I'm seeing. As they begin to gather and develop groups, a tactical thing that they do with their hind legs is, they begin to grind their hind legs, and that produces a serotonin, which I believe causes them to be attracted to one another. So I'm guessing it's like a mating season, but they begin to gather in these huge groups. They become sort of, I don't say frantic, but they go on these feeding frenzies, which I'm assuming is caused by the higher levels of serotonin, the mating that's probably happening, interacting with one another in these huge groups, these huge crowds, thousands and thousands of other grasshopper and I guess locusts at this point, but overcrowding. And oftentimes the Bible doesn't always refer to things in a literal sense. Of course, we know that in Revelation. We know that it's so much symbolism there. Let's see here. Let's see if we could get some help on it here. Do I even still have this person? Heck? I don't do. I thought it was interesting earlier. I was kind of studying it and looking into it earlier. And I was reading in Daniel, I was reading in Revelation, and I was reading in Ezekiel because I know they always had a lot of these weird visuals and symbols and things like that that were. But I was hearing and noticing like different metals and materials being mentioned as they were describing these locusts. Let's go back and it says, they were given power as the scorpions of the earth have power, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass and green thing, or any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Which I thought that was weird as well. That it specified it as in instead of on. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should torment them for 5 months. Their torment was as the torment of a scorpion. He strikes a man. Strikes a man. I thought that was interesting because one of the things I was noticing was like the shortness of breath. One of the things, kind of like convulsive behavior, shortness of breath. I was noticing that with this particular virus, this COVID-19, that it tends to, depending on how long it's been in your system, attacks the lungs, which of course affects your breathing and things like that. But I could be reaching. Then I was noticing the 5 months reference, and I was remembering they were specifying that this could last until August before this is completely cleared or solutions have been properly made. But moving on. And in those days shall seek men shall seek death, shall not find it, shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. On their heads were crowns like gold. I don't know, just the wording is so weird. Instead of saying gold, they had gold on their head like crowns. They had crowns like gold. Faces were as the faces of men. And it's weird because it says as the faces, like everything is sort of like vague how it's said and it's presented. Nothing is really just saying anything like straight up. It's sort of like it appeared to be like this, or it had the characteristics of this. And they had hair as the hair of women, and the teeth were as the teeth of lions. They had breastplates, and it was breastplates of iron, and their wings was the sound of chariots, many horses running into battle. I had when I heard about that, breastplates of iron, hair of teeth of lions, faces of men. I had thought somebody had showed me a picture of like a helicopter, and they were saying that it was some sort of like an invasion or something like that. That it could have been somebody coming over on helicopters, a bunch of them like locusts, and it was weird. But I noticed that the iron, that in the Bible that represents like the strongest metal, and it usually shatters and breaks most things, if not all things. And but it also made someone had referenced this to the Roman Empire, I believe. It was just interesting how how they were trying to reference that, and they were trying to reference it back to the statue. I was reading in Daniel, and it was talking about King Nebuchadnezzar and the vision that he had for Daniel to interpret. Um, I thought that was pretty interesting. I remember reading that. Let's see here. Daniel, is it? He took Daniel to the king at once. This is Daniel 20, verse 25, chapter 2. Ugh. Excuse me. I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar. I'm so terrible at these names. Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it? Daniel replied, no wise man, enchanter, magician, diviner can explain to the king the mystery he asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Sorry if I'm pausing quite a bit. My microphone is kind of in the way. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in the days to come. Your dreams and visions that passed through your mind as you were laying in bed are these. As your majesty was laying there, your mind turned to things to come. The revealer of mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else. Let's see here. Sorry about that. Not because I have greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation and that you may understand what went through your mind. Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure, its chest, arms of silver, his belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and his feet partly of iron, partly of baked clay. A long time ago when I read this, I knew this was in, I figured it was in reference to people by the feet. Everything else was kind of, I still had no clue. I was young at the time. But when it said this was partly this and partly that, that let me know that it was like a mixture of nations, mixture of people. The fact that it was clay and iron lets me know that one was somewhat of a weaker or a humble stature than the iron. The iron was a little more maybe forceful, a little more uh, brute in comparison to the other group. It said that feet of iron and clay, reading ahead. Yes, partly of iron and partly of baked clay. While you were watching, a rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and gold were all broken into pieces, became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the. From what I remember reading, the gold represents Babylon. And I know that ancient Babylon in modern day should be Iraq, um, or at least some of the ruins from ancient Babylon is located in Iraq. The iron is supposed to be somewhat like the Roman Empire. The iron is supposed to be the Roman Empire, and then the clay is supposed to be the apostate church or the Roman Catholic Church. And they were working in cohesion for a minute, and with them being combined, they were a bit stronger. One was able to use the strength from the other to strengthen itself. But at the when the smoke clears, it's still a weaker vessel than the other. The two just don't mix, no matter how you no matter how you do it. But I was just noticing, like I said in Revelations, when that locust, I guess, reference was made and symbolisms of that, and it made me think of this COVID-19 thing. Not saying that that's what that is, because I could be completely off. But it made me think of that. One of the one of the characteristics of a scorpion, which that's the power that was given to these particular locusts. Most locusts migrate due to certain conditions. They migrate due to overcrowding. They migrate due to the circumstances that they're in, and they become locusts based off of that circumstance. Then they migrate over and they feed and they call it, I think they said the stages is like a gregarious stage. Give me just a second. Hey.
Hey, what's going on? Are we live now?
Yeah, I was live. I was texting you the topic and everything to make sure you were cool with it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I haven't seen it. It didn't come through yet.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I was doing some studying earlier on in Revelations in chapter 9, and I was in Revelations chapter 9, Daniel chapter 2, and I was in Ezekiel chapter 1. And
Okay.
one of the things that was kind of catching my attention was Revelations chapter 9 verses let's see here. Scroll
It's
back up.
about to be so lit. Oh my goodness. You when you said Revelation, I'm like, all right, let's go. Yes, Jesus, come on.
Oh my gosh. But I was noticing that it was saying that in verse 2 in chapter 9, he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, and it was as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. There came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. So earlier I did like a whole study on locusts and what are they and where they come from. And originally they're just grasshopper. They're not even called locusts in their original state. They're not called. They're only called locusts when they enter what's called a gregarious state. is when they let's see I don't want to make this like a long thing, but they start off as grasshopper, and once they start to gather in large groups, they'll begin to grind their back legs. Once they grind their back legs, it creates a serotonin, which is like, I guess, there is like a mating thing or something like that.
Okay.
And so they all begin to mate, and they gather in just these large numbers. And so they'll go somewhere and find like ideal conditions, because they're from what I was reading, hungry. So they'll go, because they're usually, looks like they're in like desert and desolate places, and then they'll get turned into this gregarious state, and then they'll fly or go to ideal conditions to feed. And so that's why they call it like swarming and stuff like that. So you'll see them go into cities or go into area, and they'll just feed on crops and things like that. But that is when they're referred to as locusts. They're in like a preservating state, pretty much. And I was noticing that in Revelations, that's what they referred to them as. It says, "Out of the smoke came locusts upon the earth, and on unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power."
Oh, okay.
One of the characteristics I was looking up for scorpions was self-preservation. That was one of their like main things. They're really good at defending themselves and preserving themselves and taking care of themselves. And that was one of the main things I was noticing with them. Um, it was also it was weird. I was looking at that. I was looking at how they were describing them, like what they had on, and that
Yes,
that
yes.
that's what was always like puzzling to me. It says, "And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses,
Horse. Verse 7, yep.
prepared until battle, and on their heads were crowns like gold." And that kind of puzzled me as well. Like, is the wording? They didn't say they had on their head gold like crowns. They said crowns like gold, and it's just like the
What
wording.
version are you, like, what translation are you reading?
Let me double check. It's the KGV, the KJV.
Okay. So I study out of the Amplified, and so
Okay.
mine reasons the locusts resembled horses prepared and equipped for battle, and on their heads appeared to be something like golden crowns, and their faces resembled human faces.
Mm.
And then there's a cross reference to Joel 2:4.
Okay.
Yeah. Let it. What is Joel talking about? Oh my goodness, my God, today.
And rough day.
No, like today, not like today is Thursday, but like today as time
Oh yeah.
that we're in.
Oh man, it's tricky.
Whew.
It's tricky out here.
I had a friend, so I asked her, I said, "How you doing?" Because I've been intentional about just checking people. She says, "I'm good, but I'm shook it." I say, "Yep, that's the term. That's the term."
Yep.
Okay. So the cross reference is for Joel 3:21. I was part of my people's crime, which I have not yet pardoned. I the Lord will make my home in Jerusalem my people. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's stay on your topic. What did you? So what you went from Revelation chapter 9, and then you mentioned Daniel.
Yes. So the reason I pulled up Daniel is because of Daniel is chapter 2, and I was in verse 25. I started
Okay.
there, but I was mainly looking at the statue vision that he had. The King
About the
Nebuchadnezzar.
different kingdoms and the different materials that the statue was built out of.
Yeah, so I was
Okay.
noticing like the gold references and the iron references that was in this particular dream, and what was the popular references for those. People were, I know a lot of people were depicting it as the gold represent Babylon, the iron represent the Roman Empire, the baked clay represented the Roman Catholic Church, but I forgot what the bronze and silver represented. I forgot. I think I wrote those down, but I lost the notebook that I wrote it down in.
Okay.
But the reason I even looked at it was because of the iron that was referenced for the breastplates on the locusts in Revelation chapter 9. And it said, and the sound of their wings were the sounds of chariots and many horses running into battle. Their breastplates were as breastplates of iron. And so it made me think of, is this a certain nation? Is it a certain nation? Is it a nation in combination with another nation? Because it was mentioning the gold crowns, like that's the head, like that's the lead of it. And the gold represents Babylon, but ancient Babylon is no more. What is modern day Babylon is Iraq.
Tell me why you say that.
Babylon, I know ancient Babylon, like the ruins of ancient Babylon, the great city of it, all that was ruined. It was under ruins, and I don't know if how it got destroyed, but it's under ruins. Like it was just, that wasn't what it was anymore. Like a lot of the ancient cities have taken on just new names, and just it's been re-inhabited. It's just different. Like I know like Persia isn't Persia anymore. I think it's Turkey.
Yeah, I was just thinking something, not Turkey. Okay, so you're saying ancient Babylon is now present day Iraq.
Yeah, I believe some of the ruins is like directly either in the center or like next to it or really close to it, but that would be considered like modern day Iraq. And so I was looking at that and just wondering, like, you know, it seemed like they used in Revelation it was the word locust is used, and I was just thinking about the characteristics of locusts and how when overcrowding happens, that's when they migrate and sort of go and swarm at different places. And it seemed like locust was the word that was used, like this isn't normally their behavior. This is a behavior that happens when this happens. So I feel like it could be a nation that overcrowding isn't something that they're used to. Maybe some new customs got in place that they're not used to, and it's making them, I don't know, uncomfortable, or it makes them want to lash out, or I don't know. I was just really just trying to make sense of it. But most of this came from just noticing how like God's word is just going forth each and every day. And we're seeing a lot of the prophecies and things like that come to pass. And a lot of us feel like, you know what, nah, I've been hearing this for years and years, and we've been hearing about the end times and the last days and all that, and we got time. There's a lot of people that still think that way. And so I wanted to just kind of take a look and see, where are we? Where are we in that timeline of the prophecy, and where are we at? What do I need to be doing? You know what I mean? Not in a fearful and panicky kind of way, but just in a making sure I'm lined up and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Make sure I'm aware of what's happening around me kind of way. But yeah, earlier it was just a spiral. It was my first time having like one of those kind of studies where it's just spiraling into this and then turn into that. I was reading in Ezekiel.
First time ever, or just first time in a while?
First time in a while. Because I used to do these kind of studies where it just spiraled out of control. And I ain't gonna say out of control, but it just left one thing.
Where you just go deeper than where you intended.
Yeah, it's been.
Because I know you study. Like, you study.
Yeah, I know. But it's just, lately I've been like, I'll study and it's more concentrated. And then like this style of study is what I used to do, where it was just kind of like, ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's this? Ooh, what's this?
Yeah, that's I love those. You get lost in the word. Like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
I always say those times are rare for me, I feel like. But when they happen, it's just like, yes, come on and speak to my spirit, Lord. However you see fit, because you look up the meaning of a word, and then you go deeper, and you go deeper, and you go deeper. Just touching on what you just said real quick about what should you be doing, what should we be doing, I think we need to be on our face before the Lord.
Absolutely.
Like, this has, like, people was, 30 years old, 30, 31, whatever. this ain't never happened. We've had viruses before. We've had outbreaks before, but never like this.
Never.
And as I was asking my manager the other day, I was like, Amy, I'm sorry, well, that's her name. She's a really nice lady. I was like, I know you're a little bit older than I am. You've worked longer than I have. Has this ever happened? She was like, not in our lifetime.
Oh, wow.
So the fact that a lot of people, whether they desire it to be so or not, are off for this amount of time. God he's calling. He's been nudging. And I don't know, where you've been, but I know for me personally, I'll have these really quick thoughts. And it's like, I need to get in the Word, but I don't. I need to pray, but I don't. I feel a heaviness and a pull. And, after our last conversation about you saying outside just feels different, I cannot wait to I'm going to do it soon. I just go out and just sit and just try to, notice differences in the atmosphere. But God is doing something. And like I told my friend, for the people that are walking with the Lord, this is the time to get before Him, seek His face, hear His voice. Time out for games. Time out for passiveness. It's time to plant seeds of the gospel in the lives of those around. It's time to get to work.
Yeah.
And revival will come after this. And my prayer, honestly, is that when revival comes, those that are reignited, on fire for God, that we would stay that way. And for those who, how times like this can cause people to just be, I guess, remember how after 9/11, everybody who wasn't in church got in church?
Yeah.
This, I think, will bring that about again. People who didn't really have a inkling for God, they're going to develop inklings. My prayer is that they catch on and they stay in. They just come on in. Just come on in, get to know Him, and walk and live right. I sound real country and real old right now. So, come on in the room, baby, and close the door and stay in because it's secure.
Come on
the
in
difference
this
between
room.
worldliness and godliness and stay there. Yeah, God is trying to get our attention.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what we need to be. We need to be while He may be found.
Absolutely. It was early I was reading in Ezekiel, and it was talking about the vision he had of the angels with the six wings.
Okay.
And he was saying that each of them, he said, let's see, I looked and I saw a windstorm coming out of the north. And I noticed that too, he made a reference to direction. So I'm going to have to study into that as well. An immense cloud flashing lightning and surrounded by a brilliant light. The center of the fire looked like a glowing metal. And in the fire was what looked like 4 living creatures. In appearance, their form was human, but each of them had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their feet were straight, and their feet were like those of a calf and gleamed like burnished bronze. Under their wings and on their 4 sides they had human hands. All 4 of them had faces and wings, and the wings, one wing touched the wings of another. Each one went straight ahead, and they did not turn as they moved. Their faces looked like this. Each of the 4 had a face of a human. On the right side, each had a face of a lion. On the left side, the face of an ox. And each also had the face of an eagle. So I did studies onto 3 of those faces. Of course, I know the human face. But then it said on the right side, it had the face of a lion. I was looking up the characteristics because I was wondering, why did it use these faces? So I was using.
What chapter was that? I'm trying to find it.
It is chapter 1. Actually, it's chapter 1, verses 15.
Okay.
Chapter 1. Hold on. Did I say 15? Actually, it is 10, verse 10.
Okay.
And but yeah, the lion was more so like justice, wealth, authority, and I was noticing that characteristic for that face. The ox, that represents like a teacher and student relationship, like like a close knit teacher to student, master to the student kind of relationship. So it represented like a closeness of learning and depending on your authority for learning and teaching and understanding. Um, that was the ox. They had the and an eagle also. And the eagle, what I was noticing, is one of the birds that can fly higher than just about every bird, giving it the advantage to see further ahead what's to come. And I felt like this particular scripture was showcasing how the angels moved, but it kind of spoke to me earlier and was saying like this is how you are to move as well. It was saying that they moved straight ahead, but they never turned. Everywhere they needed to go, they were able to get there, but they never had to turn in order to get there. They moved straight ahead the entire time. And with us,
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead, go ahead.
Just like in my mind, like the imagery, because they were all together.
Yes.
Right, and there's 4 of them, right? So, but they're all moving straight ahead. Does that mean the north, south, east, west? Or they separated, but they walked in those directions?
It's the vision like that's what I'm looking for. The visuals for it is so complex. I gotta one day like try to draw it out or look up some depictions of it because like it's sometimes confusing for me to even visualize. But it was basically saying like they were all some kind of way they were all touching. They were all like almost like in agreement with one another. That's the way I hear it. Like they were all touching like in agreement or something like that. And they moved all about the land, but they never had to turn, which to me speaks to me and says they never wavered. Like they proceeded forward with the will of God. They proceeded forward with God's plan, and they never turned. They never turned away from it. That's what I kept hearing every time I read it. How they move forward and they never turned. And like within today's time, it's so many distractions. There's so many other paths that you can take. There's so many other deviations and detours that you can take that look easier, that look better, that look more appealing. But it's important for us as Christians to stay forward. They were completely covered. From what it's saying, they had a set of wings that covered their bottom. They had a set of wings that covered the top, and they had a set of wings that helped them that transported them. That's how they got around. So they walked. They went straight forward. They never turned. Protected on all sides. It was speaking to me in weird ways when I was reading this earlier, but it spoke to me and saying like, this is how you ought to move. You ought to have that relationship with me as your authoritative figure. Your not me, but my relationship with God. I should have the relationship with Him as He's the authoritative figure. He's where my wealth comes from. He's where my authority comes from. He's where my teachings come from, and He's the one that helps me be able to see above all else to see what is to come, so that I know what I need to do.
That's so good.
He's the one that keeps me covered from top of my head, bottom of my feet, but at the same time, keeps me moving forward and moving in a way where I don't have to waver and turn. Like that's what I was getting from it earlier when I was reading this, and just taking a step back and thinking about this whole COVID-19 thing and how weird things have gotten because of it, and just remembering you don't waver. One of the things that scare me the most, because there is some fears, there is some things that pop up, there are some thoughts, but one of the things that scare me the most has nothing to do with the COVID-19. My thoughts is the solution.
Come on.
What are they possibly going to offer up as a solution for this pandemic that's affected the entire world, because it isn't just the U.S. This thing has hit in China. This thing has hit in Asia, in Europe, in Australia, Africa, South America, North America. You know, it's hit everywhere. It's a global pandemic now. What is going to be the solution? And the first thing I thought of, I spoke about it on a podcast a few days ago.
New world order.
Exactly. Or a very small trial version of it.
Oh, for sure.
You know, just trying it out and just noticing like what happens when something like that works. And
okay.
I was talking to my brother a long time ago, and I told him, I said, a bad economy in the U.S. is nothing to really be afraid of. A good economy, that would petrify me. If we had a great economy, perfect, like a great economy, no debt, the entire world works together, everybody's under one set of laws. We have one set of currency that everybody accounts to. We have one government that governs everyone. You know, and it's a lot of good that can come from it, because you think of third world countries where they have no resources. Now all of a sudden they got access.
Yeah.
Countries where they were alone and struggling for water and no health care. Now all of a sudden they have access to all of that. A world where we were once separated and everything was so separate and divided. Even in the North America, everything is divided and separate. Now picture everything as one solid unit. As good as that sound, that's scary to me, because what is the plan that the government has for the people when you implement a plan like that? Control. And one of the best ways for people to accept something like that is if you create a problem so bad that people just cry out for a solution. And then you say, here I am. I got the solution. If you want to get back to your regular lives, working your jobs, traveling back and forth, you want to get back to that cruise that you planned for your wedding anniversary, you want to get back to taking those flights back and forth out of the country, we got the solution for you. You'll be back to your regular life in no time. All I need for you to do is what we say. You know, that was my thought process. So when I read this verse in Ezekiel talking about how each one went straight ahead and they did not turn as they moved. We as followers of Christ, we got work to do. So that means we're going to be moving. We're going to be moving. We're not going to be stagnant. We're not going to sit still. We got work to do. So we got to move. But as we're moving, we cannot turn. Forward is the only direction that we need to be going.
There's a scripture, I can't remember what it is, I just heard it so much. It says, I always say this, like, you know your voice of a stranger will not follow, not looking right, not looking to the left or straight ahead.
Yep.
I need to find that verse. Oh my God. Man.
Let me see.
How long you been on already?
Let me see. I don't even want to look at it. Let me look at the time. Let me see. It's been 59 minutes that I've been on.
See, listen.
But I was on for a while before I even thought, because I was looking at a verse. I'm like, let me get Char over here if I can. And that's why I text you like, hey, are you busy? If you're not, that's cool, because I know it's short notice. But yeah, like, yeah.
Man, my heart is so just, it's in anticipation. It's in anticipation of what Holy Spirit is going to do. There is a lot of personal things that grieve me that need to be done in order to hear God. I don't even lie. It's scary. It's scary. However, if we do what the word says, now looking to the right, now looking to the left, based on the relationship that you have with God, you hear His voice, you know His voice, and a stranger will not deter you. Of a stranger you will not follow. I feel like if we do that, we'll be okay. In order to get to that place of obedience, we have to be broken. I wrote the other day, like, because just yesterday, prime example, anxiety was like ebbing and flowing. I was high, and I was low, and I was okay, and then I was like pins and needles. Somebody was like stabbing me. That's what it felt like. Because I had the CNN app on my phone, and like every second, I almost felt like something breaking news. Then I'm on the phone talking to a cousin, and someone called and was like, "Hey, the money in the bank, you need to be able to access it. If things shut down electronically, what are you gonna do?" And I'm thinking to myself, I get to a point personally where when there's just too much stimulation, I shut down because I cannot function. Even though the person who called me was just simply being proactive, and I took their advice because you know what, you're right. Because even if something happens, I will, I have some cash on hand. However, you and I have talked about like Mark of the Beast and all of these symbolism and stuff like that. And there's this guy, I'll send you his channel, and after we're all done, there's gonna come a time where the money in the bank and the paper money in your hand,
it's gonna mean a thing.
Not buy, not sell, and it's about to get like that. Mm-hmm. And concerning COVID-19 and concerning the cries of the world of we want this to be over, this whole, like my mom, I love that she called it shut in. When she called it a shut in, it made me feel less like bothered.
Okay.
But they're calling it quarantine. This quarantine type situation, that in a way, like it is beneficial. And like I was on a prayer line today where we give like, someone gives some hot bread or they give the word and they talk about, obedience to your government, like Romans 13 was the reference scripture. And it says, verse 1, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, granted by His permission and sanction to those which exist have been put in place by God. So although, yes, man has put his little sketchy, gritty, prideful, disgusting, dirty, sinful hands in government, God has still ordained this, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And your gut was so quick. But like, God has still ordained this, and we still have to be obedient. Like, staying inside does help prevent or increase the spread of this virus. However, my sister, she was talking about it. She was like, okay, we quarantine ourselves, but what are they doing? What are they up to?
Yep.
What's really going on? And then she mentioned martial law, and like, whenever somebody said it, I just chill. Like, like it's not possible. And the way Americans acting up, like I know you've seen these little kids in Miami. Like I want to go down there and be like, I'm gonna need you to tighten up. One little boy on the news told if I get corona, I just get corona. I'm just gonna keep partying. First of all, I know you got a girl mama that loves you, and while you out here in these streets, you go back and get girl mommy kids. Girl mommy get sick, your heart gonna be broke. Like we are such an individualistic culture that we're not conscious of disobedience and how that's impacting the nation. There are over 10,000 cases in America. 400 of them have died.
Yep.
And that's a lot. And I think, honestly, if it didn't happen as quickly as it happened, we wouldn't be on high alert as we are.
Nope.
We wouldn't be as of high alert because the flu kills people yearly. Like, it takes people out.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But this is happening at such a rapid case. I kind of just wonder, like, this is speculation that I've heard. I know that this fact is that it came from Wuhan, China. I heard that it had to do with, like, this was created in a lab, and I guess they were testing it on a dog or something like that, and they were supposed to waste the animal, like to get rid of it, incinerate it, and get it. And it made its way to a market, and that's how it began to spread slowly but surely.
That could be true. Yeah, that could be true. And one thing I try to watch out for is like details.
Yeah.
One of the thing is when I watch the news, when I watch different articles, I look for general information. That's all I look for.
Yep.
When it comes down to detail, like on March 4th, he went down to Blockbuster, and I don't even look at that half of the time. I just need the general information so I know the general direction that the country and other countries are heading in. That's what I look for. And then after that, I pray. I pray for God's leadership and vision, understanding, uh, just that He can let me know this is what you need to look out for. This is what you need to watch out for and prepare for, kind of thing. So, but yeah, it came from China. It was said that it came from bats. That bats. An infected bat had bit, I believe, a monkey. And in China, there are certain regions where monkeys are like kind of like squirrel. They're just around, and it's not really frowned upon to have them, or nothing weird to have them around. And that's how that's how humans end up coming in contact with it. And with China being so heavily populated,
What you just catch on to?
See, is that the region where the overcrowding probably takes place?
Are you talking about? Well, I mean,
See, well,
your listeners are gonna be like, they just make it that much.
I have to do some little size studying for that. But one thing I would notice too is like in the Bible, it would mention winds, and it would mention like directional winds, and certain directional winds symbolize something. So I want to say like a western wind or a west wind is, I want to say like of knowledge, understanding, or growth or expansion. I could be wrong, and I know an eastern wind is like of pestilence and destruction, famine, loss, things like that.
Where are you finding this? Like, I've never heard that. I've never thought about the wind, honestly.
When you look up, I'm gonna look up winds in the Bible, and I'm gonna let me take a look at one now. Let's look up one now. So I'm gonna type in, I'm gonna look up west wind in the Bible and see what is there saying right before that. Because usually whatever context God is speaking in, usually it's God that's the one that's sending it. And whatever context he's speaking in like, I'm mad at y'all kind of thing, depending on what wind he's sending. Okay, so this is an article I'm reading. It says, unlike the east wind of the Bible, which is a distinctly powerful, dry, and hot wind, the winds from other three directions do not appear to have any particular attribute. In fact, the west wind finds a mention just once in the connection with the plague of the locusts, in which it was used to send the locusts away from Egypt. In Exodus 10:19, the north wind is said to bring rain. Proverbs 25:23, and there was an instance of a windstorm coming out of the north, accompanied by the bright flashes and lightning in Ezekiel 1:4. The north and south winds appearing to go around and round in an unending course. The north and south winds are welcome winds. When they blow on the garden, it's a fragrance that is spread abroad. So yeah, it was like, I was noticing that it was just like small characteristics to each wind. And I noticed that the east one was the one that was most violent and negative. They said that the west wind was mentioned, from what it said, once in the Bible, and that was in reference to it took away the locust. And so it blew the plague away from Egypt or whatever. The north wind was mentioned in the study that I was doing earlier with Ezekiel 1:4, when it said, and there was an instance of a windstorm coming out of the north, accompanied by bright flashes, and that's when he had his vision of the angels with the 6 wings moving forth. So I don't know, man. Like I've always wondered like what did these winds symbolize, but I would always notice that it would mention its direction.
And if it mentions, it's definitely relevant. I would recommend like commentaries to see what theological seminarians or whatever, like theologians are saying.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. Definitely concerning. I was gonna think, but I just lost it. It's not needed.
Sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's not that. It's a lot to process. Lots of process.
Yeah.
Uh,
And this is where I'll be at. You know, I'll see something and it makes me think of something else, and I'll try to figure out what that is and see if there's a connection, if it makes sense. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll get all this information and I'll say, all right, let me try to organize this. And so I'll write stuff down and kind of condense things a little bit to make it a bit more easier to digest for myself and try to come up with some kind of a clue or some kind of a conclusion to all this madness. Because right now on my computer, I got like 20 tabs on my on my browser right now.
Oh, now I remember what I was going to say. When you asked about could that be the nation of the possible overcrowding, I thought about right now. So I teach Sunday school, and we talked about also like the careers. Like I always listen. South Korea is the safe Korea. North Korea is where Kim Jong Un, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
In North Korea, there are like missionaries there, like secret, have underground Bible studies, have been basically incarcerated for Christian. Like one of the articles that I read, that of a woman who was out of the country, go to China for her family, and when she got caught, like she had never heard about God, never heard about the Bible, but when she was being beaten and interrogated, they were asking her, "Do you read the Bible?" Like asking her all these questions. She was like, "What?" And so during her incarceration, like trained up next to another prisoner, and she was like, "Is there a Bible? Is God?" And the person responded to her. And I guess that was her confirmation of just God and a Bible that you need to be concerned about. China has one of the most strict governments.
Man.
They control, just like North Korea, they control what in and out diligently. When it even, like, not even just talking about like spiritual things. There was, I hope that he's still living. There's an artist by the name of Ai Weiwei, and he's an activist. And his art, he would basically like call out the government on their neck. Like he, had to be over almost 10 years ago when China had that huge earthquake, or they had a huge natural disaster.
Okay.
And thousands of kids were killed in their school. And because the infrastructure, the structure of the building wasn't up to par. It wasn't earthquake proof or earthquake safe.
Got you.
And this artist basically was just on the hunt for the names of these, like, where are their bodies? Where are they? These parents are grieving, want to bury their babies. And so he creates this piece. I think over 3,000 or 4,000 kids passed away. And he creates this piece of just backpacks, blue backpacks on the side of this building. And one of them was in color, just one. And I think it was the representation of one little girl, I forgot. But kept making calls like, find out where the kids, all of this. And so he does this, and all of a sudden,
Yep.
China don't play no games.
Nope.
Like state government, you come for them, they clap back and shut it down.
Oh yeah,
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was like, they real big on censorship, but go ahead.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so when it comes to, I was going somewhere that was. But anyway, like, think about all of that oppression. And now think about this COVID-19 virus. There is going to have to be an uprising of the church in that area. For those who have confessed Christ and professed their faith, there's going to have to be an uprising in that area. I remember a few years ago when I was in UMSL, a friend showed me an article of churches being burned down because they didn't want that. And I definitely think there are spiritual demonic strongholds in place there. Let me know if I'm stepping into something that you really don't want on this stream. There has to be a stronghold there. There has to be something spiritual there that is binding this oppression to the because if you're already big and bad as the government, what difference does it make if you have a couple beliefs?
Yeah.
Unless those beliefs are going to spread this gospel of Christ, and these people are going to get to a new type of freedom where you are no longer going to be able to oppress.
And it's just over in that particular region, because I'm a firm believer that there are certain spirits that rule certain regions of the world.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You know, and like it's like that spirit is assigned to it. That's why you see certain traditions and they won't wave away from those traditions. You see certain characteristics and they won't waver from those characteristics. In that particular region, like you were saying, they real big on censorship. So right now on the internet, I'm talking to you and I'm browsing the internet, and whatever I type up, I can pretty much find the information for it. So I type up something, all these tabs are all biblical related. I got pulled up. I got like 20 tabs. In China, if you pull up the internet, it's a condensed version of the internet. So in America, we have access to pretty much all the information. Pretty much, there is some things that are locked off from us, so far as the dark web and secret stuff and all this other stuff. But for the most part, most general information we got open access to. And over there, it's illegal for them to have that kind of access. So they cap it. They'll put a cap on what information is allowed. They put a cap on what information you can share. It's just weird. Even the way they law system is, their justice system. With women, like if they're sexually harassed, there really isn't much like law for it. You know, they can plead the case, but no one's gonna really like go after it and try to get it solved or punish the guy for it. It just happens. You will see a lot of women on trains and buses and stuff like that being groped by other guys like harassing other girls, and like the girls are just so, you know, they just let it because just out of tradition of years and years of this is the way it is. That's why they don't want any teachings over there. They don't want anything messing up their system of what they got. They want everybody to be sort of sheltered and spoon fed the small amount of information that they give out. You know, and something like that, judgment is gonna come on a nation that practices that kind of system. So yeah, it's just a lot. Like all of this came from just what we're dealing with now with this COVID-19. I just started thinking of how does this correlate to Revelations and the prophecies that was put forth. Where does this event line up in that time frame, and you know, what does that mean for me as a believer? What do I need to be doing? You know, am I shining the light that I'm supposed to be shining? You know, day to day. Make sure I'm not living in fear, and that I'm trusting God and moving forward and not just sitting still. Um, and it's weird. Like in God, you can. Lately, He's been telling me to sit still.
Oh.
Lately, He's been telling me to sit still, but it's weird. It's the kind of sit still where you're not you're physically sitting still, but spiritually moving forward. If that makes sense, like
No, it
I've
does.
been
It makes perfect sense, and that's just confirmation for me. Like
in.
you're not the only person who's saying that, and I love how, like that for me is just confirmation that God is, and He is speaking. There's there's a common thread. There's a common understanding of what is happening right now. Just like
Mm-hmm.
how, like I go to one church, I got a friend go to church at St. Peter's, and like her pastor will be on the same wave of what my pastor's talking about.
Mm.
That has to be Holy Spirit just saying, hey, this is what I need my people to know.
Mm-hmm. What was crazy was last Sunday.
Yeah.
I think it was last Sunday. Um, Me and my wife, we woke up for to go to church. We was gonna go to my church, my normal church home. I got my church home in Fairview Heights that I go to, but there's also a church out here in Madison that I visit from time to time.
Yeah.
Me and my wife, we've been kind of battling back and forth whether we want to stay at our church home, relocate to this new one. Um, we've been kind of battling back and forth and kind of trying to figure that out. And we've been praying and talking to God, like, hey, we want to make sure we do things in decency and order. We want to make sure we're not just moving just out of our physical wants for things. That we moving according to your timing. So we woke up that morning, and I had plans in my head to go to our church home. And when I got up, I got dressed and everything, and my wife was like, "Hey, do you wanna go to Mount Nebo?" And I was just like, we could. And she's like, "Yeah, I kind of want to go there." And I was just like, "You know what? Okay, all right, we'll go there." And went there, and the word that went forth, we needed it. We needed it. And I was thinking in my head, like, I'm so glad that I didn't go to the other church because I know that that wasn't what would have been brought forth. The word that we got, we need. It was imperative that we were there, and I thank First Lady for bringing the word the way that she did. The pastor, he was out of town traveling with his son,
Yeah.
and so the First Lady, she brought the word, and it wasn't a whole lot of hooping and hollering going on. It wasn't no big show and a fiasco. It was just unbraided, sweet, simple, powerful, imperative word that went forth, and it was so simple, and it hit home so greatly. And I think you know that's what was amazing about it, just hearing how God's people are in tune with him and being able to bring the word forth and inspire and uplift, encourage, and exhort others. You know what I mean? With me, I'm always up for having a conversation about God and talk about the Bible, but it's not often that I really get on social media and kind of really put forth the word and encourage other people. And I would like to start getting into that more.
Yeah.
It's not often that I really reach out and just encourage other people and try to uplift them. I mean, I do, but it's not always like from the word. It's not always biblical. Sometimes it's just like in an everyday kind of way. I'll do it, and just being a little more intentional about what I'm doing and being a little more purposeful with what I'm doing. So, but yeah, that it was such a good word, and it was well needed in this particular time. The timing was perfect because it was before, of course, the COVID-19 was already around, but it wasn't nearly as what it is now at all. And I want to say it was either last Sunday or Sunday before last when we went to that church. But ever since then, it just spiraled out of control into what it is now. But her
Yeah.
word was
That's
simply,
crazy how fast.
yeah. But the word that she gave was simply be ready and be
Mm.
prepared. Be ready and be prepared. Preparation. And she mentioned the 10 virgins, and she gave that analogy. It was just such a simple but well needed word. And that's what made me kind of take the stance that I've been taking, is just I want to make sure that me and my wife aren't living in fear, that we're not panicking, but that we're not ignoring what's happening around us. I saw a church, I think a church got shut down in Kentucky because it was a law that they passed the bill to say, or I forgot what it's called, but it was an executive order that was given over that particular region, and they told them to do either a shelter in place or a quarantine. Like they weren't accepting any gatherings of more than 10 people. And this church ignored it and gathered anyway. And the state officers came over and had to, enforce law and have everybody to leave that area. I'm not sure how all that ended up, but it was just weird. And I think.
So, good question.
Uh-huh.
Based on like a talk, like I know you mentioned like how you watched the news earlier. I took that tip like yesterday and kind of just over this process, like asking myself, okay, they're talking about this, but what are they really saying? Like, what is the government doing? And I don't know if I've been taking it a little too much, but I remember hearing someone say, okay, the federal government is this, states are doing things. And I actually called my first lady the other day because our Bible study got canceled. I was like, so what they gonna do? Get together or they gonna show up and shut it? Like, no, I don't think so. But was that the only state you heard about that happening?
So far, that's the only state. But just looking at the general direction at how everything is progressing, I can see that happening for just about nationwide. I can see them.
It's about to get messy.
Yeah.
It's about to get real messy because if states are doing like different things, like Florida, personally, like what was the governor's name? Mark Rubio, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. Something like that.
He was. I just caught a snippet of it. It was like he didn't shut down the state. Spring breakers are still gathering, and it was just like droves of people, and I'm just like, why don't you take this executive? J.B. Pritzker, when he shut down the schools last Friday, which we can go from tomorrow, made a statement about like, we got to do something now because our federal government hasn't done anything. And I think our president is on Twitter.
Man.
He's on Twitter. I feel like he might have made a little slight at Governor Pritzker or whatever, or something of that nature. Basically saying like we're not like inactive, but it definitely seems like it. Oh, Jesus. Again, we just have to find and seek God and definitely be diligent, like making sure you have everything that you need. Like how we talked yesterday, a couple of days ago, we're trying to make sure that you and your wife are okay. You gotta make sure that your loved ones are okay. Like that is really all we can do. And just not look to the right and see what you're doing.
So, and in tonight's podcast, we've talked about a lot. We've covered a lot of things and jumped from topic to topic. And all of it can be confusing and sometimes just a little much. So take all of that stuff we talked about, compartmentalize it, set that to the side. What I've been doing to kind of help things, to simplify things in my head so that I don't get overwhelmed, is just be grateful for right now. Be grateful for this. The pastor that I've been visiting, he been doing these little morning segments, and the name of it's been Grace for the Space. And he said, just be grateful for today. Be grateful for what you have today. Thank God for the peace and the understanding, activity of your limbs, waking up in your right mind to even think to pray. Just be thankful for right now. Don't worry about tomorrow or yesterday. Don't worry about next week. Just be grateful for now. Thankful for the food you have now, for the shelter you have now, having your loved ones with you, the ones that are still here. He said, and that's what kind of simplifies things for me. When I go on my little study rants and I'm looking at this and this and that and trying to connect dots and nothing's really making complete sense. And it doesn't have to, because I'm not anybody that God has to answer to. I gotta just follow his plan. It may not make sense to me. And even if it did, what will I do? What are you gonna do with all this information, Michael, if you figure it out and you connect the dots? What are you honestly gonna do? All you can do is pray, let God be God, let him carry out his plan. You make sure you be obedient, be grateful for what you have, be a light and a beacon of light unto others. But no matter how complicated it gets out here, our job is still very simple. You know what I mean? Just to love one another as we love ourselves, follow Christ the best of our ability. He will keep your mind in perfect peace, the mind that is stayed on him. You know what I mean? When everything else is just going crazy, keep your mind on him, keep your eyes on him. So that kind of simplifies things for me towards the end of the night when I did all studying and then worked my brain up and everything. Sometimes I just have to kind of decompress and just say, you know what, God, thank you. For just being my Lord. Somebody else could very well be ruling over me, but I got you ruling over me, and you are the best at it. Somebody else could be governing this whole world, but you are. And you're in control of everything, and you're the best at it. And I wouldn't have it any other way. So those are things that kind of help me. Shar, I definitely appreciate you just dropping in, especially short notice. I didn't think I'd actually be able to reach you tonight.
Oh, it's no problem. I just hope that this is beneficial for your listeners. I hope that things even in the midst of all this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, we have been running for an hour and 32 minutes. Can you believe that?
I mean, listen, when you came with the scriptures that you came with, you should have already knew. Like, come on.
And listen,
Revelation is the end of the Bible, and it is jam packed. Like, I need to just dive into it. I've read people like, when you come with Revelation, you come coming hot. You're coming in hot. You got to, like, there's no way around it. And then with Daniel, because anyway, let's close this out. Because we can easily continue to go in, because Daniel foreshadows a lot. All of the Old Testament points to Jesus. Mm-hmm. But anyway, wrap this up.
All right. Well, listen, we're gonna do something a little different for our listeners. We're gonna go ahead and just close out with a quick word of prayer.
Yes.
I want everybody to just appreciate everybody coming in and just tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, definitely like, comment, share, subscribe to our channel on YouTube at NappsandNurture, NappsandNurture. And let's go ahead and get into a quick little word of prayer. Dear Lord Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight, Lord God, just in unison, Lord God. Lord God, I pray that you just bring us an understanding of what your plan is for us individually, what you have us for us to do, our assignment. Help us to be diligent, Lord God. Give us the strength that we did not have. Give us an understanding that we did not have. Give us wisdom, Lord God, in the midst of all this. Help us not to ever take a spirit of fearfulness of the world, Lord God, but only fear that we have is in reference to you, Lord God. I pray that we don't fret of what the world is trying to do, what the world has going on, that we be wise, that we be aware, that we be active in our communities and with our friends and our families. Lord God, help us not to be fearful, that we be wise, making sound decisions, Lord God. Let us be active in our approach to how we do things and in our relationship and our walk with you. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. All right. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
All right, sure. I'll catch you later. And I'm pretty sure we'll link up again on a different one.
Of course. Anytime. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. That is it, guys. It has been this is the longest one so far, an hour and 35 minutes. I'm proud of us. This one was just sort of like just a spiral out of control kind of topic one, and I think I like these. I think I'm gonna do more of these. I like the out of control, all over the place. Where are we going? Why are we here? Kind of segments. These are pretty cool. I will catch you guys later. Peace.